Jeez. Hey, welcome to Cruise Control. It's Fred Staab and Les Jackson, and we've got a great hour for you, including some discussion about future product from Ram. We're going to talk about the ERay. Had a good and a bad week. Why is someone banning it? That's dumb. And,
it happens.
And then we're going to tell you about a brand new vehicle from VW, which is actually a sedan. That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
That's welcome.
Welcome. So
I like it.
We'll have that all coming up on Cruise Control. Stay tuned.
Les Jackson.
Control.
Everything you need to know about new and used cars.
Control.
Industry news. We'll fix or repair your car on the air.
Control.
Fasten your seatbelts and let us take the wheel. Now, your ride is about to begin.
Control.
Because you're on Cruise Control. Cruise Control. Cruise Control.
And hello everyone. Welcome to Cruise Control. This is your on-air automotive magazine. As usual, we are here at the microphones. I'm Les Jackson. That guy over there is Fred Staab. And there's no shortage of information this week. There never is. And we're sometimes as surprised as you are to hear some of these things. But
yeah,
we'll just get going.
Yeah. How about this, Les? Is Ram getting ready to enter the compact pickup world with the Ram 1200 as opposed to the Ram 1500? Well, there is an international version of the Ram 1200, and it's looking like this might come to the U.S., so we'll talk about it.
Absolutely. And mixed week for the Corvette ERay. The first one sold for huge money that went to charity, which, to be
Barrett
applauded
Jackson.
for that.
Yep.
But one enthusiast group bans them from the track.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, because if you have a Corvette, you definitely might want to take it to the track. It's something you do. And over at Volkswagen, well, they've got a new electric model called the ID4. And Les Jackson, it is a downright sedan. It is not an SUV. You're very happy about that, aren't you?
I'm sending a dozen roses to Volkswagen.
Yeah. And good news for VW because they found out that they can get the full federal tax credit ID on their ID3 crossover. Speaking of that, we're going to kind of try to go through which vehicles will get the full $7,500 federal tax credit, which are the winners and the losers on that. Good info if you're going out to buy an EV.
It could be a decision maker.
Yep.
And over at Lincoln, they go wall to wall with screens in the new Nautilus, all the way across the dash. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's a big news. And, well, Hyundai has plans to go to the moon. Yeah, maybe we'll see an Iconic 6 driving around on the moon's surface. Actually, they're talking about building the new lunar rover.
The new rover,
Yeah.
Which I think is just so cool.
Yeah, I love it. That's the one vehicle I wanted to drive I never got to, the lunar rover.
I would love to have driven one of the test NASA rovers that they tested out in the Nevada desert.
Yeah, it was basically like a platform with a lawn chair on it.
Right.
Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
right. That's very much, that's what it was.
Yeah, I felt bad for it when they left it behind, but that's what car guys do. I was like, oh.
Now, most people aren't aware of this, but the rovers were used to go out, and they placed mirrors, silver mirrors, in a whole bunch of spots on the moon's surface.
Well, we'll talk about that when we come back on Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine.
You're coming in.
Cruise control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control. And we were talking about Hyundai going to the moon and building the rover. You just want to finish that thought that the original moon rover went out and put out mirrors.
They put out a bunch of mirrors in a very carefully calculated geographic area. And the purpose was back in the early 70s, early mid 70s, we, those of us in the laser industry, we actually beamed big argon lasers up to the moon to bounce off the mirrors and come back to Earth and measure precisely the distance for just measuring the distance, but also to try and study gravitational effects and all that. They still do it, but not with that type of laser.
Interesting. Now, I love that because I'm excited we're going back to the moon. Of course, we haven't had an unexpected disassembly.
That's right. They're sending you back to the moon, by the way, to clean the mirrors.
That's right. I got my Windex. How well does that work in a zero gravity?
That's right.
That would be a fun science thing. I guess you could pump it out because you're forcing it. I don't know. I don't know if it would work or not. A spray bottle.
I don't know. No, there's no air to pump.
There's nothing for it to fly through to hit the mirror. Problems you didn't know you had. But let's talk about something completely different because this week, Ram Brazil revealed or kind of teased what could be called the Ram 1200, a compact pickup to go after the Ford Ranger. And there's some clues in this video. They've seen the aggressive Ram badges and the styling that we've all known on Ram products for a long time. It's been undergoing cold weather testing in the U.S., the test mules, so there's some real belief that this will be coming to the U.S., and why wouldn't it? They have a turbocharged model, and they say they want to go up against the Ranger Raptor. That's one of those vehicles you just can't get. Have you ever seen a Ranger Raptor?
I've never seen one.
No, me neither. So it will be gas powered and it will be turbocharged. That's all we know.
Yep. Well, they've got to do it. I mean, they're sitting out there all alone, not offering smaller pickups, while Ford is cleaning up the market.
Yeah, with Maverick and the Ranger, and
you've just got to get in there.
Yeah, it makes sense. And they have Stellantis has so many platforms and turbocharged engines in their lineup that they could really build something nice, I think. And it appears that this is coming in Brazil, but I bet we will see it, and it will compete against Toyota Tacoma and Ford Ranger. Don't you think?
Without question. It's just, you got to do it.
Yeah. So we'll keep you up to date on that. That's all we know so far. But interesting week for the Corvette ERay. Let's start off with the good. So the first one was auctioned at Barrett-Jackson, and it went for $1.1 million to an educational nonprofit called Donors Choose. So Taz Juchter, our friend and chief engineer, was on hand to generate excitement and encourage bids for the ERay. It's always fun when you watch Barrett-Jackson. It's like, hey, I know that guy.
Yeah, it is fun.
I met him.
Know a number of these people.
These are our peeps. We travel in the same circles,
Absolutely. And it was bought by Ray Hendrick. He's famous, CEO of Hendrick Automotive Group.
Yep.
14-time NASCAR Cup champions.
Mm-hmm.
In his motorsports. So 1.1 million, which, probably has at his checking account.
Yeah, that's not what it will go for. Yeah. that would be a high markup even for a
lunch
dealer.
Money for. So it goes to Donors Choice, which handles the needs of public schools in low-income communities. So
Right.
bravo for you.
Yeah, that is great. Remember, this is an amazing vehicle, 655 horsepower. It's
Yep.
got the 6.2-liter small block V8 in the rear, just like the Stingray, and an electric motor on the front axle, 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, which is plenty for the street, isn't it?
That's brisk.
It is. If I was going to buy one, I would say that's the one to get
Yep.
because it's a little less hyper than the Z06, and you get 655 will get it done on the street, don't you think?
I dare say.
And when we come back, we're going to tell you the bad part of the week they had when one enthusiast group bans them. So we'll talk about that when we come back.
Go for it.
And welcome back to Cruise Control. Fred and I, before the break, were talking about the ERay Corvette, and the first one got sold for charity, and it's just great. Unfortunately, there's always somebody who puts a damper on things.
Yeah, just when things were going well.
Yeah, and this time it's the National Council of Corvette Clubs, specifically about track gatherings. All the brands, the performance brands, have track days that they arrange all over the country, and you don't have to be a certified race driver, but you can take your car out and slam it around the track, and
Not into something.
don't hit something. If you are going to hit something soft.
Yeah.
But anyway, they have decided that they're going to ban the ERay from track events.
Yeah.
And the logic in one way is fine, but in other ways,
It's kind of old-fashioned.
Really a non-issue. I think it's a bit of a fear thing. But the lithium batteries, everybody knows, or at least you should know, that if it's perforated or somehow seriously damaged, it spontaneously combusts at very, very high temperatures and extremely hard to put out.
Yeah.
So they're banning the ERay because of that in the event of a crash, although these things are designed under SAE standards to withstand enormous forces without coming apart.
It comes down to battery size, too.
That's right.
This has a 1.9 kilowatt hour battery. They say that's too big. They even say if you bring that vehicle to the event and just park it in the parking lot, park it 30 feet away from any other car. I mean, that to me says it's like old fashioned. Like there have been Priuses and that everywhere. They all park all around. There's batteries all around, EVs, all kind of things, It's not like this is something that, we need the fire truck standing by with the foam cannon ready to go.
Yeah, they're treating it like a sex crime offender moving into the neighborhood.
Like you got to back off. Everyone, don't stand too close.
This is bordering on silly.
Yes.
It's bordering on, it's not discrimination, but it's just bad understanding.
They need an update. They need an update. Maybe they need to talk to the engineering people in Team Corvette, and they'll tell them, you don't have to be worried about that. Maybe that's what they need.
Yeah, and
might be a good idea.
And the fact that if in the event, what they're thinking is in the event of an ERay crashing into one of the other Corvettes, the possible fire will destroy both cars. Well, if you're crashing in a big enough crash to disable both cars, that's kind of the least of your
They
problems.
might both be trashed anyway.
They're
Not
they're
if they
both
catch it.
total.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So
I don't know. I just think you
they
really
need to update their bylaws. That's what I
need to try a decaffeinated coffee.
think. There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. This next story warms your heart, Les, because you and I agree with you. I agree with you. They need to make other things besides SUVs, and
Yes.
apparently Volkswagen has heard your plea, and they are come out with the ID7 electric sedan, upper mid-size sedan class, potential range of 435 miles. That's based on the European cycle, so it'll be a little bit less in the U.S. It will come this year to Europe and China, and 2024 in North America. And good-looking vehicle. I guess this is. Would you say this is bigger than the Jetta?
I would say it's bigger than the Jetta. Not as big as the Passat.
Okay.
Maybe maybe it is. I mean, without seeing it in person, I guess that's too much of an assumption, but
Well, it's
around that
195.3
size.
inches long.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
the roof slopes elegantly to the rear like a coupe. This is what they're calling coupes now. 4 doors.
You're not going to use that B word, are you?
No, there's
Okay.
none of that here. Backlit
Okay.
touch sliders. It has backlit touch sliders. Is that what you're talking
No, that's fine.
Okay. Coefficient of drag of 0.23.
That's quite low.
So comes with a 15-inch infotainment system, augmented reality head-up display, a new air conditioning operating concept integrated into the infotainment system, and as I said, backlit touch sliders, not the BESPOKE word.
Right.
Full suite of level 2 driver assist, memory functions. By the way, it's got a hatch in the back, which is kind of nice. I think it looks cool. I mean, it is
Yeah.
just what we're talking about on cruise control. If you took an ID4, kept it the same to the belt line, and then cut the roof off of it and made a fastback out of it, that's what we're dealing with here, right?
It sure looks like it, and you know, it's the way to go. I just think it's smart. I think they're going to sell a lot of them.
They say this is all part, Volkswagen says this is all part of their accelerated electric offensive, 10 new models by 2026. So there you have it. I don't mind that form factor of the sedan with the hatch in the back. It was very unpopular for a long time, but I think for aerodynamic reasons, it's going to become very common. You remember, you
Yeah.
think about, who was it? It was Acura, I believe, had a model that no one understood what it was, but it was, I guess, what they would call a coupe utility now, just like this, and it did not sell. I can't think of the name of it. It did not sell. People just didn't understand it. They're like, well, it's not an SUV, and it's not a sedan, so what is it? And I think because of the aerodynamic nature that we're going to see this shape become very common in the future.
I think you're right. It's very fuel efficient.
Yeah. So there you have it, the ID7. Now, also good news from the folks at VW on the ID4. Now, the ID4, of course, is their vehicle, their crossover vehicle, and we figured we'd take some time out to try to bring some light into all these federal tax credits, because it's kind of complex. Who gets the $7,500 and who doesn't? And good news for Volkswagen this week, they confirmed that the 2023 ID4 is eligible for the full $7,500 federal tax credit. One of the reasons is It's built here in the U.S. in Chattanooga, and so the percentage of American source components currently is 40%, and it will have to, and the battery and the percentage of minerals in the battery is 40%. Take that back. And American source components are at 50%. That will go up. So currently, it does get that. That means you can get an ID4 base model for $31,495. Makes it more competitive against things like the RAV4. So we'll talk about these federal tax credit numbers when we come back. Who's a winner? Who's a loser? It's kind of complex, so stay tuned to Cruise Control.
Cruise Control.
All right, welcome back to Cruise Control. Fred Staab and Les Jackson with you. We are your on-air automotive magazine. We try to help you out if you're buying a new vehicle and demystify stuff that the automotive world is talking about.
That's right.
This is a little bit of a mystery, and you know, I would say if you're going to buy an electric vehicle, you definitely want to look on several websites and maybe even print those websites out to see if your vehicle you want to buy qualifies for the tax credit. You know, we told you this week that the ID4 from Volkswagen will qualify, at least for this year, for the full $7,500 federal tax credit. Now, that's not to say it will in the future, but this year it will. And the reason it might not be in the future is the numbers that require a certain percentage of minerals for the battery and parts will increase after a certain amount of time.
Right.
So on Monday, the U.S. Treasury announced how the new battery sourcing requirements would affect electric vehicle manufacturers, and they released a list of vehicles eligible for the full $7,500 tax credit, as well as those eligible for a partial $3,750 tax credit, and the vehicles that no longer qualify. This was reported by Automotive News. So 11 vehicles get full credit, 9 get partial credit, and then there are some that are no longer eligible. So it's kind of hard to get this all squared away, but they basically, on April 18th, the new sourcing requirements came into effect, and they will be available for EVs that have 40% of the battery's critical minerals extracted or processed in the U.S. or in a country with which America has a free trade agreement, or if the battery is made up of materials recycled in North America. The other half of the credit becomes accessible if at least 50% of the value of the EV's battery components are produced or assembled in North America. And the idea is to reduce America's reliance on countries like China, where sometimes the market, how they mine this stuff might not be the best, i.e. child labor and things like that, right?
Right.
So GM is in the best position with all these new rules, with all of its EVs qualifying for a full $7,500 rebate. But this will change. And then there's certain vehicles that have been caught out. So the 2023 Audi Q5 Quattro plug-in hybrid, the BMW 330e plug-in hybrid, the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid, the Genesis GV70, the Nissan Leaf, the Volvo S60. And it was confirmed that the ID4 Volkswagen's crossover will, of course, get the full $7,500 credit. Vehicles that qualify for the $3,750 credit, Jeep Wrangler 4xe plug-in hybrid, Jeep Grand Cherokee plug-in hybrid, Ford E-Transit, Ford Mach-E, Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring, Tesla Model 3 Standard Range, Rivian R1T, and Rivian R1S. And interesting, it's hard to explain, but the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid EV gets the full 7,500. Yeah. Ford F-150 Lightning, standard and extended range. Lincoln Aviator Grand Touring, Chevy Bolt and Bolt EUV, Cadillac Lyriq, Chevy Silverado EV, Chevy Blazer, Chevy Equinox, and on and on and on. It goes all through this. So these rules are changing. I would find some government sites that will, I guess it's the Treasury Department, and several sites I'd print it out if you're going to the dealer, so they know.
Yeah.
You've done the research. Overwhelm them, just like a legal case. Overwhelm them.
That's right.
With information, right?
If they thrive on data.
Yeah. So you say, hey, here's this, and this. This qualifies as of the purchase price, as of the purchase time. It's complex, and it changes, and percentages change each year in the cars. So. It's kind of a difficult scenario, isn't it?
Yep, you really need to do your homework in a big way. And yes, the dealer should know, but don't count on it, because the dealers across the board really aren't all that interested in training for selling electric vehicles. They're more complex, and they're just interested in moving vehicles. So they don't tend to invest a lot of effort in doing all this homework.
Yeah, exactly. So it's up to you to do the homework, and we'll try to help you out with it. So we're like those, remember, people call in. I remember in the cable company, they would call in to do homework. People call in on the phone. You get that picture with the guy on the phone. Anyway, let's talk about a vehicle that I believe does not qualify for this, but has one gargantuan infotainment screen from A-pillar to A-pillar, sea to shining sea, the sanctuary for the senses, the all-new Lincoln Nautilus. It debuted Monday of this week. Good-looking vehicle. Lincoln's done a little bit of a trim piece in the grille to kind of break it up a little bit and highlight the Lincoln logo. And they've reimagined this with that full screen, the whole dashboard, the whole front of the vehicle is a screen. A little bit different approach than having the 28-inch computer monitor bolted to your dash. This is more, into the whole dash. It makes it look good. This is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged engine as well as a hybrid powertrain. Good-looking vehicle. I always thought their new style has a bit of Range Rover in it.
A little bit. Yeah, there is some similarity.
Love the two-tone, the red with the black. They use some very high-end interior quality pieces. And they have a tremendous amount of luxury in this vehicle. It allows the sanctuary to create the sanctuary. If you haven't driven a Lincoln in a while, by the way, they're some of the most quiet vehicles when you drive. It has a Blue Cruise, so it is a semi-autonomous driving. You can do lane changes and things like that. It's sort of like their Super Cruise,
right?
So I've experienced that on GM vehicles. Works well. Takes a little to get used to. And there's tremendous amounts of luxury. There's 4 signature body colors, including red carpet, diamond red, chroma caviar, blue panther. There's black onyx and medium light space gray on the interior, smoked truffle, black onyx, and Allura blue.
Allura blue.
They have the Jet Appearance Package, which includes 2-tone paint, available high gloss 22-inch hoops and an exclusive interior environment and anodized black exterior elements. It's nice.
They're nice. I took one on a trip a year or so ago.
They have I guess, a mode called Lincoln Rejuvenate, a stationary experience orchestrates specially curated sensory experiences tied to lighting, screen visuals, personal preferences such as seating position, and massage options, allowing clients to recharge. A symphonic orchestration with crisp high-resolution animations on displays.
Wow.
Creates an immersive digital sanctuary based on different moods. No, I did not write that. That is.
I was about to say this doesn't seem like your writing.
And then it would be followed by a line that, and it looks cool.
Yeah. So translation, it's really nice.
Yeah, it's very luxurious, you know. What do you think of the big screen across? Is this a Les Jackson? I like it, but it will break. Or
no, I like it, and it's not the first vehicle that I have seen with that. The first one was the EV1 from GM back in the mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
The dash screen went all the way across the dash. That was called the wow panel.
The wow panel.
Because when you turned on the ignition, you went, wow.
Look at that.
Everybody had exactly the same reaction.
Also, too, you look at some of the Maybachs when you look at their interiors, and they have the full screen dash that is pretty impressive as well. So it's becoming a thing. Your whole dashboard is a screen.
I think it's inevitable for all vehicles. Why not?
All right. Well, why not? We'll come back and tell you how Hyundai is going to the moon. Stay tuned.
Cruise Control.
Hey, welcome back to Cruise Control. Fred and I are running the clock out here. We want to be sure we cover a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We mentioned earlier at the beginning that Hyundai is going to be the group building the new Lunar Explorer rover.
Yeah.
They're building a model now, and I think this is just great. The rover, they have a prototype of the rover over here in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. Up close, looks pretty fragile.
Yeah, like a board with a couple of lawn chairs, right?
Really, it's about it.
And some really wacky looking tires.
Yes, they're sort of like springy metal.
Mm-hmm.
Hollow tires. Anyway, Hyundai is going to develop this. It'll go up when we go to the moon.
Yep.
Well, we won't, but
they had a little
will.
setback with that this week.
A little setback in
Yeah.
in the propulsion side, but this gets worked up.
Yeah. It's going to utilize LiDAR, cameras, driving system, motor, wheel, suspension, charging parts, solar panel, as well as Hyundai's Rotom's robot manufacturing technology as part of the mobility. I believe this is going to the south pole of the moon. That's where they're going to send this. So it's interesting stuff, isn't it?
This is interesting stuff. It's so overdue. After all these years, but it's going to be great. The technology is just quite literally night and day from the original one.
Do you think this is covered by the 100,000-mile warranty?
Yes, it is. But getting someone to go actually do the repair is problematic.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that might be a little bit of a problem to find a Hyundai dealer and say, hey, my wheels, there's something wrong with one of my wheels,
Yeah, we'll meet you at the Moon Starbucks.
Yes. Neat stuff, though. I love this technology.
It's just great.
Talk about cold weather testing. The South Pole of the moon must be a cold place.
Well, yeah, minus 200 probably.
Yeah, and just gray dust, basically,
Yep.
to look at. So, interesting stuff. I'm sure we'll tell you more about that. Let's talk a little tech in the remaining time. One company, StoreDot, says silicon batteries promise 100 miles of range in 5 minutes for electric cars. And they say their idea is, well, you put a smaller battery in it, but you can charge it a lot faster, so vehicles will be lighter and less expensive. They can drop about 440 pounds out of a car, and that could cut the cost by $4,500. And it means greater efficiency in handling, braking, and improved range. So I like the quick charge idea.
Yep.
I like the reduced weight. But do you think people will buy a car that has less range even though they can charge it up faster?
Well, I think so. I think anyone knowledgeable enough about electric cars will buy it, because you don't have range anxiety. You know you could go 100 miles more or charge it up 100 miles worth in 5 minutes, which is the same as putting gas in your car.
Although,
So if it's got a 200-mile range, who cares?
well, that though also depends on DC charging.
Well,
And
yes.
what's the availability? How many are there? You're on a road trip. That's great. You went 100 miles. 5 minutes. You can go in and use the bathroom and charge it up. But what if that charger's broken or not available?
You got a problem.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever see a time where we'll have DC chargers in the home where what kind of panel would you need in your home for a DC charger?
Well, you're still using AC, you just have an inverter.
But how many watts are these DC chargers?
That's the problem. You need the most you can do in your home, unless you're rich, is 240 volts. You can get 200 amps,
Mm-hmm.
and do 240 volts, 100 amps on that circuit, and that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
20 kilowatts, but actually 40 kilowatts, but you still, if in order to do better than that, you need 440, and electric companies put 440 into industrial parks and big heavy duty shops. They're not terribly inclined to put it into your house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not set up for that.
It's not set up. It's very expensive.
You have to access that power, and that power is probably in industrial areas, right?
That's right, unless you live along a main transmission line.
You mean those big high tension wires? You could
Oh,
just
no. The typical neighborhood, like the one outside on the main road here where I live, that's 20,000 volts on the main line. So they could do it, but I'll bet it would cost $20,000 for them to do it.
Interesting.
That's a lot of money.
Well, this kind of dovetails in, I think, with what Toyota was talking about as far as plug-in hybrids, where they feel they could get a plug-in hybrid range of 140 miles with a smaller battery and still have the hybrid drivetrain. I think this will make it easier for people to do that type of thing. Maybe it's not the main battery, but it will mean you can get big range from a plug-in hybrid in a smaller package. How about that?
I like the idea. It gives you all possible
capabilities. Yeah.
Capabilities and situations. If you need to take a trip, take a trip.
Right. Or and as I said, with the smaller batteries, you don't have to even put a fancy charger in your house. You can
that's right.
just do like you do with your cell phone. I don't let it go all the way down. I just keep charging it, So I think that's an idea. I'm also a big fan of solid state batteries eventually because they're safer, and I think
Yeah.
that's this will happen. Basically, it will get down eventually to where it is about the same time as filling your tank, don't you think?
It will, and I think it really won't be very many years before we get there.
Yeah, and it will be that I think the fire risk will be reduced. Be interesting what happens when these early EVs, and that's why we talk about this a lot on cruise control. Maybe it's better to lease a early EV or not spend as much, get something like a Bolt or something like that, because these vehicles are going to be out of date. They may even not be able to be used because they'll say they're fire hazards in the future.
Yeah.
So we don't know. Also, they're very heavy, and you notice there's a parking garage collapse in New York, and there was some talk in Europe. I believe it was Mercedes were saying like, hey, these parking garages were not designed to hold heavy vehicles like this. When they were built, vehicles were 2,000 pounds. Now they're all double that,
Yeah,
if
they're
not
all
more.
5,000 pounds.
Yeah, if not more. And you look at things like the electric Hummer, that's like almost 10,000 pounds. It's like driving a mid-sized truck around, So all things that have to be considered. But, hey, we're glad you can be along with us on the ride on Cruise Control to consider them. Don't forget, check us out at cruisecontrolradio.com. Check out our YouTube page, our podcast, and more. Time for me to say I'm Fred Staab.
I'm Les Jackson.
We are going to see you down the road.
Bye.